Sooner Nation, Thunder Nation, we are back. This is the Just OK Sports Podcast. That is just Oklahoma sports podcast as well as just an OK podcast. So if you like average things, please like, subscribe, follow, come along for the ride. Leave us a 5-star review and a comment. It would help us tremendously. We would appreciate it, and it would just lift our self-esteem greatly. So I'm one of your village idiots, Daryl, and I'm here with my brother, Jared. How are we, sir?
It's 2024 now.
Crazy.
Yeah, wild. So yeah, no, I'm good. I didn't really do anything. It was weird. Everybody I talked to was like, "Yeah, I'm not really doing anything." I was like, have I reached the point of being so old that even all my friends are so old that they don't want to do anything?" Like, I had one friend I think that I talked to, and he's even younger than me, and he was like, he went to like Vegas or something. Um, but I was like, yeah, I didn't do it. Nobody I knew who did
Here's
anything
the
this year.
thing, man. But here's the thing. It's because of all those young years of trying to do something, and then you just go, this is dumb. Like, this is like, there's nothing cool about New Year's Eve. Like,
Yeah,
there's just not. Like, no matter how hard you try to make it awesome, it's like, I'm tired. Like, I have to go to work in another day or so. Like, yeah, we just stayed up really late. That's really all we did. Like,
yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, I don't really like it's like whatever, like New Year's. I don't know. It's always cracks me up because people like have like I know so many people that are like, oh man, New Year's comes and I'm gonna like that diet's gonna finally, and I'm like, it does nothing changes, like nothing changes. So I always find that a little funny. But yeah, no, it was good. I mean, I just hung out and spent time just chilling, relaxing, which is
Yeah.
needed sometimes. So but how was things back in Oklahoma?
Yeah, it was all good. We were saying we laid low, kind of chilled, and my wife's car broke down again. So
Oh,
yeah,
I did not
and
know that.
got it fixed, got it back today, and I think what we fixed is not what's wrong with it. So there's still something in there that's not working. So I don't know.
You're having a time.
I'm having a time with the car. Yeah,
Yeah.
she may just need to be put out to pasture. I don't know, but
Maybe we can get like Landers or somebody to sponsor the show.
that'd
Get you,
be awesome. Yeah.
um
Hey,
for
considering that like Braden Willis was out like begging for a car on their podcast,
yeah.
I don't think they're calling us up anytime soon. But Landers,
Yeah.
if you want to, I'd be very grateful. Johnson's of Kingfisher.
Yeah.
You do the
Or
sports animal
or
stuff. Jump on the Just Okay Sports podcast.
or just Bob's used car and tire shop, whoever. We'll take whatever.
We'll
So
take whatever. So, speaking of take whatever, the Sooners had to take their talents to the Alamo Bowl this year after dropping 2 games that they definitely should not have lost. But either way, it was a great matchup. Arizona was a team that was on a hot streak, one of the longer win streaks on the season. For teams going through as they finished the season off with 7. They were at 6 wins going into the game. Sooners lose the game 38-24. I know that it's been several days ago, but we have not potted since. Just really quick, not only losing, by the way, 38-24, but also losing the turnover battle 6-1 was the Sooners. So, Jared, kind of your overall thoughts. Let's go like always, bad and good, but just kind of your overall thoughts on the game just in general.
I look, honestly, the defense played pretty lights out.
Mm-hmm.
There was the first drive. Look, for people that let me start off by saying this. Arizona may be the best offense we faced this season. Um, at least a top 3 defense that we faced this season, right? McMillan and I'm not even gonna their quarterback's name.
Fafita?
Fafita, yeah, like dude, absolute animals.
Yeah.
But I thought the defense played lights out. But yeah, I mean, till the end there. But yeah, I mean, the negative is the offense felt real sloppy, and
Yeah.
really, honestly, both sides felt real sloppy at times. Um,
I feel like
there was
early the defense did. The second and third quarter, I don't know that you can play better defense.
yeah, no, 100%. But then in the fourth quarter, we got back to
But again, that makes a little sense with the 6 turnovers to me,
yeah,
right? Like I'm not trying to like come, but like when you just keep getting put back on the field and back on the field and back on the field, I mean, like, and I
yeah.
know
When
the
you have
time of
six,
possession wasn't like crazy different, but I mean, mentally and emotionally, you go 3 and out, you get off the field, oh, no other turnover, right? Like,
Well, it's yeah. I mean, like I said, the fourth quarter, you could just see that they were worn out. You could just see, um, it just they were drained at that point. So yeah, I mean, but again, like you got to clean some stuff up. The offense didn't look. There was like the first quarter, the defense was having trouble getting set. The defense had trouble with its assignments. The offense was the same way. You could see, I've actually gone back and watched a little bit of the first quarter, well, first and second quarter, and you can see on the first quarter, it's like it looks like guys don't know what their like what their route is or what their assignment specifically is, and so you could see guys that kind of weren't just playing clean, I guess is how you would say that, right?
mm-hmm.
But like I said, again, to go back to the good defense, I thought played lights out for half the football game, and they shut down an offense that has been potent
Mm-hmm.
all season. And I really like to see them dialing up some pressure and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, and then like I said, the defensive line. I'm just gonna give a shout to the defensive line because a lot of us had question marks there. I thought the defensive line was getting after it.
Yeah.
I know that
Yeah.
they were bringing pressure from linebackers and corners and stuff that helps them a little bit, but there was still times, dude, Bothroyd and
Oh,
I mean,
RMT had
yeah,
some good pressures in the game.
and it was just and it was funny watching it because it was like it was almost frustrating because I know Arizona's as good as their offense is, their offensive line is not some juggernaut, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they were just dismantling them for really almost for 3/4 of the game.
Right. Right.
Um, and that it was just it's such a dominant performance, and I wish that we'd see that. It's frustrating because it's like, are we? It was like kind of the same thing last year we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
right? With Florida State after the Cheez It Bowl, we were like,
Yeah.
dude, OU played really well,
Yeah.
and then coming into the season, it's like we didn't really keep that momentum, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of areas. So anyway, but though that's not good and bad, I guess. So what should we give
Yeah.
me yours?
I would say the bad was just I would really say the bad is just offense. Um, you know, and I've heard several other people, we're not saying anything new. Look, in all three losses this year, you go back and you watch and you go, the offense let us down. The defense played more than good enough to win this game. And I know that sounds crazy giving up 38 points, but again, like two of your turnovers are when you're getting ready to score, right? And then 7 of those points are because of the offense, right? It's a pick six, fumble six, whatever you want to call it. So 7 points comes out of that. I mean, just the defense played more than good enough to win the game, and the offense just could not overcome it. So, um, I look, and I'm with you as far as even adding on to that. I didn't think Seth Luttrell called a bad game. I don't think that's the right way to say it, but it felt weird. It felt very pass happy to me, especially early on. Uh, and I hope that that's a, excuse me, that that's something that changes as he gets to install more of his offense. Um, listening to guys that really know ball. Apparently a huge number of those plays were run pass options
Yeah.
throughout the night. So I mean, I don't know that you can really put it on Seth that he was pass happy. Maybe Jackson was pass happy. I don't know how they call that and how they do that. So that's kind of the bad. The good is definitely the defense. I'd say two goods. The two goods I walked away with is this defense can be really, really good because they were outright dominant for 2 full quarters and really probably more like 2.5. If they get any kind of offensive help at all, that game should have been a blowout by the end of the third quarter if they could just stop turning the ball over. And the other good I liked, and I know that we'll get into this in a minute, is Jackson Arnold. So before I get into the details of that, because I'm rambling too long, let's talk about Jackson Arnold. He did go 26 of 45 for 361, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, technically really 4 interceptions, but whatever. And he also had a fumble in the game. So, what were your overall thoughts watching Jackson in the game? And are you concerned or super excited or in the middle afterwards?
I mean, I'll go Doom. I'll go Doom first, just because I've apparently been accused of being a sunshine pumper by some. Um, I think that there's some concerns I have because I do think watching it back, it does look like nearly every play was like a run pass option, right? So I think a lot of the pass happiness may have fallen more on Jackson than Seth Luttrell, right? Now
Right.
saying that, it's just it's one of those things of I don't know if he wants to be like you got to run the ball, right? So like there's got to be, and maybe that's just Luttrell trying to give him, those reps to help him build that confidence going either
Yeah.
way. But just a strange thing I felt like just because he seems to be such a team first guy and he's been so pro OU and everybody's talked about how he's such a good teammate and worker. So that like would be my worst case scenario is that he really is just a guy that wants to be the highlight reel. I don't think that's the case. But regardless of that, I do think Jackson looks better than the stat line shows.
Hmm.
I think he made some really dumb decisions. That first interception is just that's on Jackson, right?
Yeah.
The second one, that's just a delay. If he throws that ball a second earlier, then it's probably, uh not picked off or it's a fight for the ball. It was just again, it was one of those hesitation things that they can hopefully, that's one of those things you can work out. Um, and then of course you had the Farouk stuff that really didn't help him. Um, now the positive when the ball leaves Jackson Arnold's hands, it's different.
Yeah, it is.
I
Yeah.
know, and like I know people are gonna like I know other fan bases would listen to this and be like, we all said that about Spencer. It's like, look, Spencer, I'm not gonna deny when the ball
Yeah.
left Spencer's hand, it looked different.
Yeah.
And when the ball left Caleb's hand, it looked different, right? There's no slide. This isn't a slide at DG, but DG has limitations in his game.
Right.
The ball does not look like that when it leaves Dylan Gabriel's hands.
Right.
And again, not trying to shame DG or anything. I think he's a phenomenal quarterback. But again, he has to play within the limits he has. When Jackson throws the ball, he's got that. Like there was the long pass play was I think it was to Nick. It was like even the one that he missed. It's like, dude, he threw that ball like 40, 50 yards down the field, and it just like he flicked it.
Well, the
It
Brennan
was
Thompson throw, right?
yeah,
Like, I mean, good
yeah.
Lord.
It's so yeah, I think that he's got the tools. And then we saw his mobility,
Yeah.
right? So that's it was we were kind of joking about that. And it's like I really had kind of forgotten until we were talking about it in the Discord. The services had him rated as a pocket passer at first, and they had to change him to a mobile quarterback because he had so many rushing yards in high
Yeah.
school. But yeah, I mean, I know it would be very easy to look at the stat line and say, man, 3 interceptions is not good against 2 touchdowns. But it's like, I really think that those are things that if he's going to have that sort of game, let's have it in a bowl game.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I said this adamantly before, and I'll continue to say it. This was a lose-lose game for OU. And you really, when you watch the game and you look back to when we were all present at the game or, present in the moment of the game, it was like when OU was ahead, it's like, okay, well, OU's doing what OU should do.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as Arizona got on top, then it was, well, look, OU's a disappointment,
Yeah.
right? Like it didn't matter. Like if OU had won by 60 to whatever, people would have been like, well, it should have happened, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I think Jackson did great. I'm high on him. And like I said, I think if they give him an off season, then I would love to see what he can do, in the spring and then come next season.
Right. Right. Yeah, I agree. And again, I don't think we're gonna say anything that anybody else hasn't already said. The number one thing, and we already knew this, but it was fun to see it a whole game. Watching him throw the ball is different. It is very now. Jamarcus Russell looked really different throwing a football and was not very good. Josh Rosen looked very different throwing a football, and I don't think he was very good, right? So just because you have tools, right, doesn't mean you're a great quarterback. And I think we agree with that. But I would also say, like, for example, the throw to Stoops on the first one, while I agree with you, I felt like that was a speed of the game learning moment. I thought both the first two actually were, right? Because
Yeah, exactly.
Drake is open. But the problem is you have a safety over the top that's not necessarily covering Drake, right? And Arizona plays a lot of man to man, and it was man to man coverage, man to man cover too, right? They had two safeties back on that one. That safety drives down on the ball, and in high school, you know what? He could just flick that ball on that RPO and dip it to Stoops, right? And he's going to catch the ball and get tackled. And all of a sudden he flips it, and all of a sudden it was kind of like, holy crap, that guy got there. Like, how? So I think that was a learning moment. And then again, cover two, he tries to throw it in the window at, in between the safety and in the corner right there in that little pocket that's open in cover two. And he waited, like you said, waited a click too long. And the safety made it all the way across and got there. And it's like, dang, I think his anticipation just needs to grow. And that's going to come with time and comfort. And that's the other thing you could tell. You could tell that Arizona schemed, which is amazing. Think about this. They schemed towards Drake Stoops.
Yeah.
They knew Drake Stoops was the safety blanket on that team. And they were going to make sure that he was taken away more than anybody else, which is just that. I love that. I love it for Stoops. I hate it for how it came out. Now, the other side of that and the positive is second, third quarter, Jackson Arnold looked amazing. The roll to the left, the throw. The dot he throws to Jaleel Farouk on the one he fumbles, inside the 10-yard line or so? Dot, right? I mean, just he was making some throws that were amazing. So two straight picks in your first 7 plays. And he comes back, and I think, what did he go, like 12 of 13 or something insane at one point in the game?
And I was going to say, his pocket presence, that's something we didn't talk about. There was the play where the dude's going to basically, I had him dead to rights, and Jackson was able to just, and the crazy thing about him is, and of course it's hard to see what's going on inside the helmet, but he would have pressure and he would just, roll out of it or step out of it. And there wasn't like, you didn't see him ever. I never felt like I saw him get those happy feet where, you'll see guys that roll out of that situation and then they're just tapping their feet, just trying to get the ball out as quick as they could. He would just roll out and just plant his feet and get ready to throw.
Now at the same time, him holding the ball for 9 seconds, you can't do.
Yes.
You either need to throw the ball away or run, period. And especially on RPO plays. And that was, going back and watching it, I was highly critical of the line during the game because of all the holding penalties and different things. But, I mean, you really go back and watch a lot of those holding penalties, and it's him dancing around the pocket for 6 seconds, and guys going, holy crap, he didn't run and he didn't hand it off. Like, I got what? And then they're grabbing a dude to protect it. Yes?
Go ahead. Just finish your thought. I just have a thought after you're done.
Okay. And so he can't do that. He set them behind the chains about 3 or 4 times in that game, either taking the sack or getting a holding penalty that backed them up. And again, it's okay to live to another down, right? You would rather be 2nd and 10 than 1st and 20, right? So, or 2nd and 17. If it's not there, trust your legs. Go do what you could do. Like, be Lamar Jackson.
Look at Baker Mayfield his first year at OU. It was the same thing, really, honestly. Remember, there was times we argued, is he holding on to the ball too long? Is he trying to do too much? And there was times that he would go get sacked behind the line of scrimmage or whatever, and it puts you in a bad situation. So, but my point also, just a quick side note, did you see the stat about the first half of the game?
No.
OU had more holding penalties called in its favor in the first half of the Alamo Bowl than it did the last 2 years.
Yeah.
In the Big 12 conference.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to say that, and again, and honestly, I felt like they missed a lot. Like, there was a lot of, that's what the other thing about the D line, again, going back to them and just the guys in general, is they were getting held nearly every play.
Sure. That's, I didn't think there was one that was pretty egregious that was missed, but outside of that, I thought it was a well officiated game.
It wasn't bad, but
no complaints there. So all that to say, I still have belief in Jackson Arnold. Now, let's see if he makes the step. Now, what I feel good about is this. I did not feel like any of his interceptions were just terrible, forcing the ball into a bad situation, right? Like, every throw he made that was an interception was to the right guy in the right spot, just late or kind of lazy, right? And again, I'm sure there's still an adjustment. Look, when you have an arm that big, I imagine you spend basically 4 years of high school not throwing the ball as hard as you can because your guys just can't catch it, right? He can now, and he needs to know that he can. And so I feel like some of those things are fine. But dude, to see him battle back and keep his head up and play as well as he did after that incredibly terrible start was awesome. Now,
Right.
vocal leadership, all those things, those are the things that I'm not sure about. Like for instance, after the first Farouk fumble, it needs to be Jackson Arnold going to Jaleel Farouk and going, "Hey, you're okay. You're good. Like I'm coming back to you and you're going to make great plays," right? And maybe that kind of happened on the sideline, but it didn't really happen on the field. And that's that kind of alpha mentality I think he needs to gain. But that'd be my only thing. So, I mean, overall, defense gave me lots of hope. If you can find an offensive line for Jackson Arnold, this offense could be lethal next year. Could be lethal. So we'll see. So coming out of the game, done with the season, 10-3, which by the way, kudos to you yet again. Troy and I were at the 9-3 for the regular. You were 10-2, so we kind of all split, right? We got to our third loss that we were predicting. It just came very differently. But still, I thought it was a good improvement on the year, taking steps forward. You got to really hope you take a big step next year going to the SEC. So with that, it's the new year. It's 2024. So I thought, Jared, I'd give you an opportunity to give the Oklahoma Sooners their New Year's resolutions for this year. I'm going to do the same as well. A New Year's resolution for the defense, New Year's resolution for the offense, and one for the coaches. At least one for each, right? At least one New
Yeah.
Year's resolution for each.
Oh man, the defense is like way tougher to do for me because the defense was the strength of this team all season. Or at least from 90% of it. I'm gonna give it to the defense. Defense, I want you to stay aggressive, but I need you to improve your coverage ability because if I'm being honest, one of my critiques of the game is, and we're going to talk about him in a little bit. Woody Washington got cooked most of that game.
Yeah.
So and not just beat, he got made to look silly.
Yeah, he did.
So really, really tough there. But like I said, keep your aggressive nature, and ensure that up. Get your secondary guys to where they can do some more blanket coverage. Just get back to where you were because it's like we saw Woody be great in the even through the middle of the year, and then it just kind of fell off. Really honestly, like I said it, and second half of the season wasn't good for him. And a lot of the guys in the second.
That's kind of been the story for Woody, though, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Like it feels like every year there's about 3 to 4 games where Woody is just like, "What happened? Like, what's going on? Are you hurt? Are you sick? Like what?" And then the rest, it's like, dude, the guy is locked down. And that's the dude. If he comes over that hill to being that guy 10 out of 11 weeks, he's gonna have a great career in the NFL.
Yeah, I was gonna say I mean, Texas, he was shut down.
Yeah.
I mean, it was.
But that's the problem. This is the third year of him doing exactly what you're saying, of having a stretch of ball where he is not very good.
Okay, let me change my resolution for the defense real quick, and I'll move to offense. The defense be more consistent across the board, because we've seen every position group on defense. While the defense overall has been the strength, there's games where the D line disappears. There's games even where the linebackers, who are probably our best group on defense, have disappeared. And again, the secondary. So just be more consistent. Offense. Keep doing what you're doing. But also be more aggressive, but really try to run the ball more. Right. And establish a back. That's what I really want to see from the offense, is establish a running back in this in your stable, because now Tawi Walker is now a Badger. He has gone left the portal, which I'm happy for him. Got a scholarship. That's great. Great landing for him too. Great landing spot. Yeah. So Gavin Sawchuk seems to have asserted himself as a very potential candidate for that. So just establish that, get aggressive, but keep to the run and give us a running back, because I feel like that was a big reason why the offense sputtered out at times. So, and then coaches, again, kind of the same thing. Be aggressive. We saw a very aggressive defense called against Arizona, right? We saw a lot of blitzes, a lot of stunts, a lot of twists, a lot of, they were throwing a lot of stuff at them. I agree with me. I'm sorry. Um, and you also just need to. The other thing is, let's just have a talk about playing the best players, right? Like, I understand Gavin Freeman's a workout freak. I understand that he's this guy. It's like, why did we still, like, we talked about it. How do we not see Petaway on the field?
Mm-hmm.
How do you not in the bowl game that you're doing all this experimentation anyway? We don't see Petaway return one punt,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think
He played some snaps,
he
yeah,
played
but
some snaps, but like, again, you didn't really do it. I think they had that little reverse where they faked to him or something like that.
yeah.
But again, don't, like, let's play our best players. I understand the love for Gavin Freeman in some sense, but let's just play the best players. And again, be aggressive with your play calling on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I agree with that. Defense, I'm gonna go a little different route. I was going to, if you'd asked me before the game, I'd have said defense, do nothing but figure out how to find and get pressure every second of every down. But they actually generated great pressure in the game, so that doesn't get to be their New Year's resolution. Instead, my New Year's resolution is for the linebackers specifically. And linebackers, you need to spend all winter and spring learning how to drop into your zone coverage and at the same time recognize the route concepts around you. Like,
Mm.
so many times this year, the backers are dropping into their zones, but they're just not paying attention to where guys are moving, right? Now, Danny the other night had some good ones, but Cannett got lost in dropping into coverage. Hip got lost dropping. Desan McCullough still gets lost all the time dropping into coverage. They don't have a good natural feel. It's the same as a linebacker who doesn't know what gap he's supposed to do running the ball, right? He's hesitating. He's taking those false steps. He's not triggering and coming downhill. Well, it's the same in your drop. As soon as you see this guy run this curl route and that, like, they're trying to get to this area. I need to drop to this spot and this deep. And how many times this year did we see guys right there at the line of scrimmage and they're dropping, but they only drop like 2 steps, which leaves this huge vacant window over the middle that the quarterback doesn't even have to layer the ball into. He can just throw it on a rope to them 15 yards down the field. Whereas if they're back, now he's got to make that throw that goes up and over, right? Which makes the ball get there slower, gives your safeties a chance to react, and anything underneath, you can come up and tackle. And we were terrible at that all year. That's my one for the defense. For the offense, Coach Luttrell, Coach John Finley, offensive line, Jackson Arnold, everybody. The reason it is called offense is because you are to be on the offensive, not the defensive. And what I mean by that is, like we did on Saturday, running the RPO constantly, where all they had to do is they knew that that was the bulk of the offense. So what did they do? They pack in 6 or 7 into the box, and as soon as the ball snapped, they all flood out, right? But pre-snap, Jackson Arnold, I got 7 in the box. It's RPO time. It's literally letting the defense be offensive to the offense. Look, sometimes you need to line up on the ball and all look at each other and go, I don't care if there's 8 in the box. We're going to blow everybody off the ball and get 3 yards if there's 8 guys on the line. I don't care if they're in cover 3, cover 4. We got 4 verticals going. You're going to get that guy's attention. You're going to get that guy's attention. And we're going to have a seam right here. And we're going to hit it regardless of what they're in. Like, there comes a point where you have to believe we can execute what our play is and impose our will. And those are the greatest offenses there are, right? I mean, it's the concept of the one-on-one. I got man coverage with whoever. They have perfect coverage, but you know what? I believe that my guy can make a play over that guy, so I'm going to throw the ball anyway. And I'm going to
Right.
let my guy make a play. The offense needs to be that. I felt like under Levy, especially, the gimmick, the pace, the tempo, all that, it was always, we're trying to get you because we don't believe that we can just line up and do what we want to do. The
Well,
offense needs to be a bully.
and I agree with you. The caveat I would give to that, and I guess a sliver of hope is one, this was a patchwork offensive line. I think the
Yeah.
reason for the RPO is that you had a month to get a lot of guys. I mean, you had the two or three of the guys that were basically had the potential to play every position on the offensive line because somebody went
Yeah.
down, you got to roll over or whatever. And then just real quick, the other thing is, you know, I don't mind. I don't hate the up tempo stuff as much as a lot of the people
No.
because in a way, it's the same thing. Like we're gonna keep running at you and we're gonna run quick, and you're gonna have to keep up,
Right.
right? Like I hate when people are like, "Well, that's such a gimmicky thing," and I'm like, "It's not a gimmick.
But
Like it can't
it
be.
depends
It
on
can.
the mentality of the guy up front,
Oh,
right?
100%. Yeah,
The guy running it, if his deal is we got to get lined up so that they're not ready. No, no, no. We're going to go get lined up so they're exhausted. We're
yeah.
going to go get lined up because we're in better shape.
It's
Like
it's
those are two totally different
The
messages.
Sam Bradford year of OU football
Yes.
was the epitome of we're gonna run our playbook and we're gonna run it fast and you deal with it.
Yeah.
That was that
Again, they
mentality.
said all the time, the more plays you let us run, the more points we're going to score. That's the whole purpose in us going like the more plays we run, the more scoring we're going to do. Levy always felt like we're going tempo so that they don't see us coming and we can get 3 yards. And it's like, if that's your mentality, then everyone's playing scared, right? Because now you go tempo and you either go too fast trying to catch them off guard and you get penalties, or you go so fast and then you look up and go, oh crap, they got lined up. We didn't go fast enough.
But like here's my thing is, and here's the difference. Like here's a little caveat to it too. Again, the Bradford years, it didn't matter if you got 3 yards on a run play, you still lined up and you went fast.
Yes.
Right? It felt like with Levy, it's like, okay, we got 20 yards on a pass play. Let's run down the field, get lined up, run it fast. We got 3 yards. Okay, now let's sit here in formation for
Yeah.
30 seconds.
And he said that first down always mattered. If we don't get any yards, oh well, now we're going to slow down because
Yeah,
now
and it
we're
drove
behind the chains and we got to make sure we get it right. Which again, it's a gotcha mentality as opposed to an offensive
it's
mentality.
it's not psychological warfare where
Yeah.
even if you like, if you're a defender and you stop and you go, man, I hold them to 3 yards and I'm standing up from a tackle and they're already lining up to run another play, I'm like, crap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so
Exactly. So
sorry
there's
not to
that.
derail you. Go ahead.
And then my last one for the coaches. I'm actually very much in line with you. Um, but I would twist it just a little bit and say, trust your young guys. Trust them. Look, Gavin Sawchuk's a dude, but when you see him pop his hamstring early in the fourth quarter, he does not need to keep being your bell cow. Like literally, there were runs in that game after he pulled his hamstring where you could tell he was like, will somebody please tackle me? Like, will somebody get over here so I don't have to run anymore because this hurts? Why is Caleb Hicks not playing? Now, look, Tally Walker didn't look great during the game. He didn't look like he had his same burst, which he's not a fast guy anyway. But like, Caleb Hicks can't get any run.
Right.
The Emegwe kid from Washington, like you're telling me pulled hamstring. Gavin saw. By the way, I also heard from all the insiders, Javonte Barnes went through every single drill before that game. They said it was as healthy as he's looked all year. Now, maybe the doctors hadn't cleared him, but if he was at all medically cleared, you explain to me why he's not carrying the ball over Sawchuk in the fourth quarter of that game. Like, again, you, DeMarco Murray, your mouth, not us, not our stars, not our rankings. You said the most prepared freshman I think I've ever seen is Caleb Hicks. And yet you played Dalen Smothers over him all year long. And now you have a game that doesn't even count against his red shirt, and he can't get a carry when you have an injured running back? Like, what do we do? Mr. Everett, playing center. We all wanted to see him there. We thought he could be good there. But when he gets rolled up on and he can't walk, you're telling me that Josh Bates, the kid that you thought was the best center in the country, you're telling me he can't play the position. You can't call plays for him to be on the offensive line as well as a guy playing on one leg. You literally have more confidence in a guy on one leg than you do the freshman. Brent Venables, Heath Ozeta, dude, the most monstrous lineman I've seen in a long time. He got 0 reps. 0 in the entire game. Like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? Right? Same thing on defense. We could all see early on Peyton Bowen was just fine in this defense. He knew what to do, where to be, everything going on, and we could only put him out there for 10 or 15 plays a game. Like, you got to trust him, man. Like, you got to trust him.
It goes back to it's such a weird. I've tried to wrap my head around it. I've tried to come up with some sort of logic to it. But again, like, people remember, Tally Walker never put on scholarship. Gavin Freeman is on scholarship. And I hate to keep picking on Gavin Freeman, but it's just he's the easiest one to point out. I love Gavin Freeman. Dude wants to play at OU, all those things, and he like I said, he's a gym rat and all that. But it's like, why? Like, he does not have the very little we've seen of Petaway. Petaway has 10 times the explosion and speed of Freeman.
Well, I don't know about that, but I mean, Gavin Freeman's fast.
Okay, Gavin Freeman's fast. What I mean is, if you're going to put the ball in space into somebody's hands and expect them to make a play.
Yes. His shake is better.
His that's what I mean. His mobility and his ability to change direction and still have that speed to get upfield in an instant.
Yeah.
Is not something that Gavin Freeman has.
I mean, he has better size, he has equal speed. Yeah, I mean, all those things. So I mean, again, that's the stuff, right? And then even like, look, I thought Canick played really well. And maybe he's hurt, but where was Kobe McKenzie Saturday night?
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't play like, and again, if you're going to tell me, well, he's struggling in his drops, he's not going to figure it out if you don't put him on the field. If you believe he's a better run defender than Jared Canick, and that if he can figure out his drops, put him on the field. It's a bowl game. It's the freaking Alamo Bowl, man. Like I told you the other day, go youth movement. And so coaches, look, man, y'all got to figure out the rotation stuff because it does. And I'm not the only one questioning it. Gabe Eichert's questioning it. Ted Lehman's questioning it. Like, we got guys questioning it. Look, you watch Caden Green come in that Texas game and you're telling me, so you really believed in all those practices that Savion Byrd and McCade Matauer were better than him? Like, legitimately, y'all thought they were better than him for 5 games. Really 5.5, because he didn't come in until there was an injury, right? Like, why? Like, what are we doing here?
Look, and like, I can give somewhat of, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I can give a pass because that happens all the time in football where, you know, Arizona's quarterback, same thing with him, right? He didn't start the season. And now you look at him and he's, in the span that he's played, he's statistically like a top 5 quarterback, right? In those 8 or 9 games that he's played in. So yeah, I agree. I mean, the thing is like, I fully agree with you. And I also think you have to look at it in the lens of, letting guys get out there and make plays and make mistakes.
Yes.
Right. Like, that's what's infuriating to me is I feel like maybe some of it's the perfectionist in Brent Venables, but it's like, look, dude, put Kobe McKenzie out there. I mean, Kobe did play in this game, right? But like you said, put whoever out there, you know, put Petaway out there, put whoever on defense out there, like any of these young guys, put Peyton Bowen out there, right? They're going to make mistakes, and we're all okay with that. You know, and that's where the real coaching happens, right? When you're in a game and the lights are the brightest, that's when you learn the most. You can only learn so much on the practice field. I understand being a practice type coach and all those things. You know, I think we both had similar coaching mentalities when we were playing high school ball. Was you got to practice well to play well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I learned 10 times more on the field than I did on a practice field.
Well, and
So
here's my deal. Okay, so let's go through some of these guys. If Jacquez Petaway is really such a bad practicer, then he should have been sent packing through the portal, right? I mean, if Javante Barnes is such a bad locker room guy and can't figure it out on the practice field, and that's why he's not playing, then he should have been processed. If Caleb Hicks really doesn't know what to do and you can't trust him to carry the football, then he should have been processed, right? Like you processed Towie Walker, who was not the fastest guy, was not the most dynamic guy, right? But he obviously got processed. But you want to keep these other guys and not put them on the field. Like it doesn't make sense, man. Like I'm with you. I don't want a guy that's a pathetic loser in practice to be playing just because he's talented. That's a cancer, right?
mm-hmm.
That change. But I don't think you got this on this team. And so again, like I'm not saying you just play guys for no reason, but when the guys in front of them are hurt and injured, okay, I think it's worth giving them a shot to see what you have in them. And I think when they're just flat out not producing at all, it's worth seeing what the guy behind them can do. And then, by the way, then you got other guys like Jaden Gibson. He got one chance in that whole game, and he caught the ball on a ridiculous catch, even though he was 2 inches out of bounds. It was an incredible – the throw was just too far towards the sideline. And yet again, he comes down with the ball, and yet he doesn't see the field but for 20% of snaps. You know, it's crazy stuff like that. We had one person on Twitter respond with a really good thought. Steve Eden, that's at Steve Eden 2, said this. His New Year's resolution would be stop being afraid of blitzing and pressuring mobile quarterbacks. Look at what Michigan did to Alabama's quarterback. It can be done, and it should be done. And I think that's pretty good. I mean, because we've talked about that a lot, that the teams like Cincinnati, when we played Emory Jones, it felt like the D-line was given the task of catching blocks as opposed to imposing their will. And I think he's got a great point with that.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I agree. I think that again, it goes back to mine. Be aggressive. Like I kind of stole it from you, Stevie. So I agree with you. Be aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, if you're blitzing and you give up a play, that is what it is.
Yeah.
Right. But like make the blitz, take the chance. So
take the chance.
It's a little bit of that don't play scared.
Yeah.
We've talked about that before under the previous coaching regime.
Yeah.
Of don't play scared, right? So there was that shift into that, and I feel like that's something that we got to get back to is being aggressive.
Yeah. Some other guys making a shift in their careers are the high school All-Americans, as they are shifting from high school to college now, and they're all getting to meet up for things like the Under Armour All-American game, which was this afternoon. And then also right now the practices are taking place for the Under Armour All-American, or sorry, not the Under Armour, the Army All-American game in San Antonio as well. And so OU had 5 players in today's Under Armour All-American game. You had David Stone, you had Eugene Brooks, Daniel Akinkumi was there, Davin Mitchell, and Jaden Hardy were all there. So 2 defensive, 3 offensive guys there on the weekend. And lots of practice videos coming out, especially of David Stone and Eugene Brooks. Jared, how did you feel about the practices? Let's start there and some of the one-on-one footage coming out of that.
Look, I think Stone, every clip I saw, and it was not posted by OU insiders that were just going to post the good stuff or whatever. I saw plenty of just straight up reporters that were posting it, and he pretty much dominated on one-on-ones just about everybody they put him up against. He did, really. So that was impressive to see. Brooks has looked really, really good. Akinu, how do you say his name? Give it to me again.
Akinkumi.
Okay, I'm gonna have to work on that. I'm sorry, buddy.
But I don't know. Like in England, do they say Akinkumi? Maybe I don't know. I don't know if that's a bad.
We probably just offended somebody. We're canceled.
Yeah, probably. But, sorry about that.
That's pretty messed up, isn't it? Anyway, if we're gonna go in, we got to go all the way in on it.
There we go.
I thought he looked a lot better than I expected. Not that I didn't expect him to look good, but the question coming in for him is, what's the competition like in England,
right,
versus coming to the United States and playing against a D1 talent. And I thought he did really, really well. I think he's probably the most raw prospect that's not anything uh crazy to say. I don't think anybody's gonna disagree with that. But I do think he has more raw talent than I expected, maybe is how I should put
Yeah.
that. But the guy that I'm just impressed with, and I was the one our last pod, and I will say it again. Davin Mitchell is that dude. Davin Mitchell is a if he can like just go look at him. Like when
Hmm.
you look at him, like there was a shot of him where he had his pads off and he was in his shirt or whatever. And you're like, dude, this guy's built like a freaking like
Yeah.
a tank. And then he puts the pads on, he goes out there and runs routes, and you're like, he moves like a
Hmm.
receiver. Like he does not move like a guy that's built like that. So I think that dude's gonna be and he's looked impressive. So yeah, I mean a lot of good stuff to come out of these guys. So I'm pretty high on it. I think it feels like a good evaluation. Of course, this feels like the most guys we've had in an all-American game in a while. So
Yeah.
at least
Uh,
at least spread out because there's always like, oh, we've got like the quarterback and some receivers, but then it was like we didn't have anybody else. But now we actually have guys on both sides of the ball, which is nice.
right. Yeah, no doubt. I thought a couple things. You're right with Stone. I watched what somebody said was every one of his one-on-one reps, and I think there was one. There was one, no doubt he got beat like pretty good. There was one that was kind of a more of a 50-50. I would definitely have considered it a QB pressure, but didn't necessarily get there. The rest, man, were just going, and the motor and the energy and the playing hard was there. He looked good in the game today as well. Played really well. The other guy that stood out to me in a big way is Brooks. Eugene Brooks, bro. Like his first rep I saw, I thought, oh, dude, he's about to get blown up. I mean, look, with offensive line, it's different, but you can still tell, like watching guys, like when a guy is being a try hard, right? Like you can see it. It looked like his effort was so low that he wasn't even sure what the snap count was. And then the next thing you know, the guy just hits him and he just stones him. And I was like, holy crap. Like it looked, every rep looked like he was not trying at all and that he did not care and yet was just walling guys left and right. Now he got beat like maybe once, maybe twice, but 90% of his reps were just straight up domination. And that is great news for me because I was pretty critical of this class and was very much more on the page of especially with Brooks and Akankumi, I thought was going to be a 2 or 3 year process before they ever played. Here's the other thing that I just heard today. There have been discussions with Brooks about potentially playing center.
I did not. I haven't heard.
And if that's the case, I'm starting to feel better and better about the O-line. Look, I thought Everett played an okay first half, but look, man, Arizona's defensive line ain't SEC, man. It, he didn't see anything on Saturday that's going to be the monsters that Alabama brings, that now that Ole Miss is going to bring. Um, like I'm I don't know, man. I think that dude plays incredibly hard. I think his attitude is way better than Rames, but we'll see. We'll just see. But Brooks there, whew, if he can snap the ball, that could be nasty. Akinkumi, I just echo you. I thought he was going to really kind of get worked a little bit at the camp, and that wasn't going to bother me because he's coming from England, which, by the way, let's also recognize this dude landed about 24 hours before practice started. So he's still changing his clock over as well, and he is balled out. And David Stone said that him and Akinkumi were in the gym together at 3:30 a.m. on one of their workout days, and they roomed together. So, I mean, that dude, man, I don't know this year, but he's going to play. And Davin Mitchell's a freak. I do think Schmitty needs to get a hold of his body. He is big for a 16 and a half, 17-year-old kid. He's physically ready, but you could tell he's tried to add weight, I think, fast, and it wasn't the best of weight. Like if you look at some of the clips from him, like last summer, early camp, he looks just like a freak of nature. He looked a little soft, bigger, right? Like, so if he can stay at the
Well,
weight he's at, but Schmitty just go nuts on him, he's gonna be a problem, big
yeah, that's
time.
what I mean. That's what I'm saying. His frame, I guess, when I would say he's built like a thing, his frame is so big.
Yes,
It's like honestly, like his frame is so big. If you really were desperate, if like a team was desperate and they just like put that dude in Schmitty's workouts 24/7, the dude could probably play line, like O line. Like he's just a big human being, especially
yeah,
for being 17 years old. So, because people forget, he reclassified. He was 25 guy, and he's
right.
reclassified to 24, so he's young.
Literally,
Um,
this is the middle of his junior year.
yeah,
Like that's how you like, and he's coming to campus right now.
yeah,
Like, and he is barely a junior. He graduated high school a year and a half early, which
yeah.
is insane. Uh, so awesome. So I mean, all those guys. Jaden Hardy. Um, I was listening actually to Josh McCuistion talk about him a little bit, and I thought this was really interesting. And he said this, and so he asked Hardy how he felt about the week, and he said, "Not great." He said, "Man, I'm not a press man, dude. I'm a safety that likes to play off the ball and react. And they're putting me in press man all the time. So it's going to be a rough week for me." Now, what I love about that, and again, I'm echoing what Josh said, he understands his strengths and his weaknesses, like, and so that's
Mhm.
another thing, man, with these all-star games, you have to be careful because the system that they're going to play them in may not be how they're going to be used at the college that they're going to, right? So the one-on-ones are probably a little bit more of itself. So those are my big takeaways from that. But all in all, like you said, it's fun to see, like at that All-American game. Let's think about that. The four guys that stood out the most are all trench guys. Even
Mhm.
Davin Mitchell I put in there, and they showed out really well, and so that's exciting moving forward for OU. Move on to recruiting off of that game. I'd say the biggest news recruiting wise that came out is Woody Washington shall return to the Sooners. You talked about it a little bit earlier. I'm sure you're still excited that Woody's back, but hoping maybe he can take that game to one more level up, right?
Yeah, no, look, I don't want to sound like, I'm not trying to spin it as I don't love that Woody's coming back. I just, like I said, he needs to figure out that second half of the season. That's been a problem
Mm-hmm.
for him really throughout his career where he's just disappeared.
Yeah.
And we've seen that, we talked about that. I know Key Lawrence has gone on to Old Miss, but it's like we saw the same thing with him. It's like it's just some of those guys need to, and I think Woody coming back is a positive. You want that
Right.
that veteran, especially going into the SEC. So yeah, I think if he really gets in this spring, this off season, and really starts to work hard on his craft, I think he's going to be a beast. But
Yeah.
he's got to do that. So
Yeah.
I'm
Uh,
very excited that he's back, though.
I am too, and I think just from a pure leadership standpoint, a guy that's 2 years in the system. I mean, if nothing else, to have him sit down next to the freshman coming in and say, "This is what we're trying to do. This is what this call means. This is what you need to do with this guy and that guy," is huge for OU and just continuing to build that culture. One thing I've always really loved about Woody Washington, he is a man of very few words. He just goes to work and does his thing. And when he is playing great, he doesn't say anything. He just keeps doing his business.
Yep.
And so I love that. On a not so good news, there was a lot of, and especially for me, I really believe that Dominic McKinley was a high opportunity for OU to get him and pull him into this class. New Year's Eve at midnight, he announces that he will be going to LSU. To say I am shocked is an understatement. Now, I understand he's from Louisiana, and I probably should have given LSU a little bit more credit. Um, but from everything I knew about that family, the whole culture side of things was big. And I do know that like the whole religious thing and all that stuff, even the D line coach that was at A&M that got fired, that was one of their biggest selling points of going to A&M was that coach and his character and his culture. And I really thought that Todd Bates would be the second in line on that. Instead, they go LSU. Now, granted, I think his family only lives like 45 minutes away. So, to some degree, even if the culture there is terrible, which I have to believe under Brian Kelly, it ain't great. I also got to believe that being close to home, you get to kind of have your own culture, right, around you and those things. So that probably played a deal, but that's a huge loss for the Sooners. And it was also reported today that DJ Hicks will not enter the transfer portal, but will stay at A&M.
Apparently, A&M's got a little bit in that bag still.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody put it in our Discord, the paycheck is still the same. So that's the way it's going to be. Look, I feel really good about the incoming class of defensive linemen and especially D tackles. Jaden Gibson, Stone. I feel good there. Jaden Terry, Lacey coming back. You got Halton coming back. So I feel okay about that. But I'm not going to lie, one of these two guys added into this class would have been huge,
I
and really brought things up a level.
Yeah, and it's what's crazy is we're not even talking about Jaden Jackson, who's shined since he's got to camp
Yes.
because he's already on campus. So
Yes.
went through some bowl practices. Yeah, can I just ask you a little off topic? I mean, you brought him up.
Yep.
Brian Kelly, is he the biggest scumbag in college football?
Well, I would say no because Tom Herman is still coaching. But he's right there behind. Now I know, as somebody pointed out in the Discord, there literally is a family that does not have a family member anymore under his watch. And
Yeah.
that's a pretty big thing to overcome. Now, that whole situation is terrible. It's awful. It is wrong. I mean, all the different things, right? I don't put it on the same plane as the guy that I can't remember where he's coaching now, but the Maryland coach that basically killed a player in practice because they just
Yeah.
kept making them go. I think those are two very different things. But yeah, Brian Kelly is
Yeah,
he's
I
a
just
used
thought,
car salesman. He's a used car salesman. I guess that's the best way for me
yeah.
to put it.
There's not a there's let me put it this way. Outside Tom Herman, I guess. I forgot that he's coaching at
FAU.
Southern Louisiana Tech State University or whatever. No, Brian Kelly, as far as Power Five coaches, he's the one I dislike the most. Um, so yeah,
me and my family are
yeah.
so glad to be a part of
Which
LSU.
we haven't talked about. Maybe we'll talk about this a little bit when we get to the playoff discussion. But yeah, there's like all these now I've heard moving parts about
Yeah.
him and all kinds of crazy stuff. So
Now,
yeah, to go back to your point, yeah, I wish we landed McKinley. I wish we could have gone after Hicks. It is what it is. I mean, I think I agree with you. There's the greed part of me that wants to bring in, more.
yeah.
However, this is the best I've also felt about a D line class,
Yes.
maybe ever.
Yeah.
And really just to go back to Stone or to David Stone, dude, like let's just Gerald McCoy go buy you a house in Norman and live there, and David Stone can be your roommate. That'd be weird, but still, like you can tell that he's trying to channel that inner Gerald McCoy, right? Gerald
They have
McCoy
a
was very
super
open
tight
up.
relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, he was channeled that, Gerald still lives down here in Florida, not far from IMG. Gerald was very high on being at OU. He was still very proud to be a Sooner.
Yep.
There's the famous at least in OU circles, a famous video of him in the Tampa Bay workout facility playing
Yeah.
Boomer Sooner.
Sooner. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's, from what what Stone had said during the camps and stuff too, he was very like, I'm a Sooner through and through. This is what I'm gonna do. Like, I don't like he's very on board. So let's hope he keeps with that. So, but yeah, I'm very encouraged by what we're seeing, even if we did lose out on those guys.
Yeah. The only other news really in the portal right now is Nick Skirton, I think is how you say his last name. He is from Purdue. He was the sack leader in the Big Ten last season. He has a scheduled visit for OU coming up, but
But he got fonged.
he got fonged to A&M today, and there's a lot of rumor he may not even make the trip.
Hopefully, he doesn't get a flat tire.
He's also from Bryan, Texas. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't fault the kid wanting to play in the SEC and getting to do it at home. I mean, why
Yeah.
wouldn't you?
As long as he doesn't get a flat tire, that sort of scenario, I'm fine with it.
Exactly. Now look, here's my other thing. Out of all that stuff, that's great. I still believe that like every transfer spot we have left needs to go the O-line. And I'm hoping some really talented O-line guys will show up in the portal, which, by the way, one that I don't think I'd be super down on. The center who was basically given death threats by Alabama fans after the game, the starting center for Alabama is in the transfer portal. Now, look, his center snap job was horrendous in that game. But guess what? If you moved him to guard, that might work. Take the
Yeah.
snapping responsibility away and let him fire off the ball and just go hit some people, and it might work out really well. So, if you feel really good about Troy Everett, look, you protect him by putting two good guards on either side of him, and then he kind of gets to do his thing, right? So, I'd be down with that, but I'm hoping there'll be some more big names offensive line wise to go through. So, speaking of Alabama, let's get to the playoffs, shall we? Um, and which game would you like to talk about first? How about that?
Well, can we just talk about both?
Yeah.
Like in the sense of both games were phenomenal.
But can I just say I hated that both games were good because of just the whole our job is to pick the four best teams, not the most deserving
Yeah,
argument.
dude, I got so annoyed because look, obviously we haven't even talked about I don't know if we're planning on talking about this, but the Florida State thing, it's like people like, see, Florida State shouldn't have made it. And I'm like, Florida State had like 80% of their starters opt out
Yeah.
or
Or
transfer
declare for the draft or transfer portal. Yeah.
because of everything that happened.
Yeah.
I still will say this, and I will stand on this. When it comes to defense, that Florida State defense
They were
is
nasty.
a top 3 defense, if not the best defense in the country this year.
They were
They're
good.
nasty.
They were good.
So I would have loved to have seen a full 100%, even without Travis at quarterback. I still would have loved to see them in the playoff. But yes, the playoff was phenomenal. I was glad to see that both games were really good. That's what I said. I glued to both games to the end of the game. It wasn't like every other year where you've had one playoff semifinal game that's just
Yeah, just
lopsided, just
sure.
beat down. And I don't think we're gonna have that in the championship either. So,
Mm-mm.
but yeah, it was really weird because maybe it was because of all the stuff in Discord, but I ended up cheering for Michigan, which felt weird. Um, but I was cheering for Washington, obviously. So yeah, but no, I mean, honestly, maybe the best in the playoff era, maybe the best two semifinal games.
Yeah, I think both games high level. I mean, overtime and a throw in the end zone with no time left on the clock for a win or a loss. That's about as good as you get, right?
Yeah,
Thought both were good. Look, to me, it was simply this: Bama's offense was not good enough. I thought their defense was, especially early in that game. They were, but the offense just was not good enough to get them over. And by the way, um, the other thing that I kind of liked about Michigan winning, this whole thing that there's just creatures in the SEC that nobody else can play with was completely debunked by Michigan. Their trenches were just fine against the mighty SEC in Alabama. And I thought they played their tails off, defensive line, offensive line. They bullied people all over the place, and it was pretty cool to watch. Texas, the two things that have been their problem all year long, their secondary and red zone offense, lost them the game. I mean, they had 3 plays from inside the red zone to win it, and they couldn't do it. They could
but
not win the game from inside the red zone, and that's been their problem all year. They've been one of the worst teams in college football in the red zone.
yeah. I mean, look, let me start with the Bama Michigan game. I, for one, was, I think, maybe the only one of us that I thought Jalen Milroe was a little overrated coming into this game. He didn't look good for most of the start of the season. Then he kind of got going, but even then, I don't think he looked elite. If you look at his stats, he was good, but he definitely isn't a guy that he's gonna put the team on his back and carry you to win. He's not gonna win you games, and he might lose you some games, in my opinion. So he's still a young kid, but yeah, I thought that was the case. But I mean, yeah, I mean, Bama got out physicaled.
Mm-hmm.
They really dominated in the trenches, honestly, which is just weird to say about Bama. And honestly, like looking at that, like Michigan just looked like the better team at pretty much every position. Um,
See, I thought it was about even at quarterback, which is crazy because I'm with you. I don't
Yeah,
think that
yeah,
Milrow's great, but I thought quarterback was even. The difference was the O line and the D line. I mean,
yeah,
they sacked Milrow what, like 7 times, I think, in
yeah.
the game, something crazy like that.
And he was just
Um,
getting pummeled even when he would try to escape. He was just
yeah,
getting
and then the O
battered.
line just kept Michigan's guy clean the whole game. They ran the ball effectively, not great, but fine. The trenches won the game. I mean, that was literally a trench warfare game, and that's where it was won.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the game, and overtime, uh, you know, was just, and you could just tell at the end of the game. That's the other thing. Michigan just wore them down.
Yeah.
Alabama just had nothing left in the gas in overtime. You could just tell. Michigan just went right down the field and scored, and then for all intents and purposes, pretty much stonewalled Bama. Um, so, and and I've seen people like, well, this should. Honestly, I still don't understand the play call with Milrow on fourth and it's fourth and goal. It's like you're at the 3 yard line. I didn't really understand it, but you know, uh, I guess it is what it is. So
Yeah. It was interesting for sure. So, by the way, the greatest thing that happened the whole day of the playoffs, by the way, semi and otherwise, was Pat McAfee on game day with the whole Lank thing. Dude, I laughed about that all day long. I don't know how many times I watched them all just going and freaking out about Reese Davis saying, yeah, he wears his own brand of clothing called Lank, and it's called Let a Naysayer Know.
yeah, it was pretty funny. I did it. It was the whole crew reacting was hilarious. Yeah, and it was. Did you see also the clip? Just another thing. Okay, I'm gonna ask a question at the end of this, but did you first of all did you see the clip of them all freaking out about the stealth bomber doing its test flyover?
Yeah.
That was
Yeah, that
hilarious.
was
And I was like, I sent it to a bunch of buddies, and I was like, this is like every dude when a military jet flies over, everybody stops what they're doing
yeah.
and looks. I was like, that's the most guy thing I've ever seen. Um, but the other thing is, do you like Pat McAfee being on like game day and doing all the ESPN stuff? What's your feeling on it?
Yes, I
I like
do.
it.
Huh?
I said I like it.
I do too. Like, look, is he a little over the top? Yes, he is, but that's why he's there. But I'll give him this. He brings fun. Like that whole like the week when Georgia and Alabama played each other and like all the Georgia fans were there and he does that whole Georgia chant thing that they do about the dogs or whatever. And he's just got the whole place hyped. And then he goes, Crimson Tide's going to win the game. The stuff like that he does is so fun. The fact, like you and I talked, we were texting about that. The fact that he even approached the Lank subject, like live on air, he went, I'm sorry, Reese. I don't mean to interrupt, but I did not think it was going that way. Like you know,
Yeah, like
like most guys would just be like, I'm not, I'm not even touching that, right? But he totally does. And again, he's a little obnoxious, he's a little over the top, but he's honest about what he really believes. He actually gives good takes. And he honestly, the other thing he'll say, I haven't watched them. I haven't seen this, but what I've heard is this. Or he'll say, I've watched a lot of them and this. And a lot of those guys try to talk Mr. Howard, Desmond Howard. You know, this team's problem is it's like you haven't watched this team all year. You have no idea. You looked at a couple box
dude,
scores and made a statement. And Pat McAfee does not do that.
I had a conversation with somebody this week and it brought this up. That do you remember the TCU game when it was Spencer Tillman and I forget what's the other broadcaster name? It's
Oh,
slipping my mind.
yeah, I can't remember, but yes.
Yeah, yes, but they literally DJ Graham was our best receiver and
Yes.
yeah. Anyways, yeah. Yeah, I like Pat McAfee. I think it's good that they're trying something in the same vein but different, right?
Yeah.
Respect to Lee Corso, but like
It's
he
time.
he should not have been on that show for 3 or 4 years now.
At least the
Uh
last two. I like three. I think about 3 or 4 years ago, you could really see it starting to go downhill. These last two, I mean, there's times where he doesn't know where he's at. Like
yeah,
he doesn't know. And I hate it for him. I do.
yeah.
Like I know he wants to be out there and I get that. And look, I will say this. It's the one time I've ever and now I say that. ESPN's doing it for money. Let's not get it twisted.
Hmm.
But they also are on trying to honor a guy well, and they're trying to let him leave on his own terms. That's maybe the only time ever I've seen ESPN treat somebody well in that way. They're a
Yeah,
pretty
the only thing I can
cutthroat
think is like
organization.
when somebody was like, what was the cooler than the other side of the pillow guy? I can't remember his name now either.
Oh, I don't know. Well, even
Yeah,
like the Mike and Mike in the morning deal, and how they just sent Mike Greenberg out, just said you're done. Like
yeah,
literally
yeah.
gave
I
him like
mean,
2 months, and then just moved it over to get up with the other Mike.
yeah. It was. I mean, like I said, I do like that he adds a new wrinkle, but and then really quick to go back to the Texas game. Did you see everybody's talking about how Quinn Ewers looked like he was concussed after the game?
He did a little bit. I mean, I didn't think that live, but watching that clip in and by itself, it looks that way. But
Yeah,
watching it live, it really looked a lot more like, man, we were right there, and we didn't get it done.
yeah. I
That's a
mean,
lot more what it
I
was.
don't
Now
think if it was
he
if
hit
Tom.
his head hard, and as a matter, if the bigger indication I would say is this, he knew because he hit, and you can see him at one point start to reach back and kind of like hold his helmet, like, holy crap, that hurt. And he stops himself because he knows that they have people up in the box watching for that stuff. And so, I mean, I don't know, man. He played well enough after that. It's kind of like the Baker year against TCU. He got hit in the back of the head. And then he goes like 11 for 13 after that. Goes in the locker room, says he has a headache, and they bench him for the half because of concussion protocol for a headache. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know, but he definitely took a shot. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
yeah. But Texas and playing concussed quarterbacks name a more
But
iconic
again,
duo.
I don't think that Sark is a terrible human
I
being
know,
like
no,
Tom
I know.
Herman.
I
I
it was
That's
it was
why I
it's
hate that argument, is because we're literally trying to put Steve Sarkisian in the same box as Tom Herman. And look, I think there's a lot of things about Steve Sarkisian that are weird, but I think the guy's a pretty good dude overall. Tom Herman's just a piece of trash.
I think Sark is a good person. I
Yeah.
still think he's super cringe and super
Yeah.
annoying, but I don't think Tom Herman is a bad human being.
Dude, by the
If
way, did you even know about his open heart stuff? Did you see
who
that story?
who
Steve Sarkisian,
no.
his first year at Bama in their offseason, they found out that he was missing an entire valve in his heart, and that he already had an aneurysm on his carotid artery of his heart, or somewhere in his heart on his artery. They were like, literally, we went in and saw that, and we were like, you are staying here, and you're like, until we can get a surgery put together, you're not leaving, because if this blows, you're dead. And the whole
Yeah.
reason that he found that out was because Nick Saban has a rule that his staff has to get a yearly physical. That is part of the prerequisite for them to get there. He said, my dad died of a heart attack at 46. So I make every single one of my staff go get a physical and have a heart check. And that's how they found it. Steve Sarkisian had no idea. So that first year he's at Bama, he spent like 8 weeks recovering from open heart surgery. He's got a scar. They showed it all the way down where they ripped him wide open and went in and did his heart surgery.
Jeez, I did not know that. I
I
mean,
don't even remember that being reported in the news.
yeah, I don't either. I mean, look, I like Steve Sarkisian as a person. Like I said, if I was a if I was having to decide what my child was going to follow as far as a football coach for 4 years, obviously I'm going to try to say go to OU. But given that it came down between Tom Herman and Steve Sarkisian sitting in my living room,
Oh,
every single time I'm
yeah.
choosing Steve Sarkisian
A
over Tom
hundred
Herman.
percent. A hundred
So,
percent. And Texas fans would agree, by
yeah.
the way.
So yeah, Tom Herman is just not a good human being. But so let's real quick before we wrap up the football talk. You want to give some predictions? How are you feeling about the championship game?
Yeah, championship game. I just don't
Should
know
we
how to
do
go.
should we do an all because like look, we fumbled the whole score predictions throughout the season. We like the last like 3 weeks we haven't done them.
Yes.
Should this be for all the marbles?
Sure, even though I held a super commanding lead, no matter what you say. Yeah, we
Dude,
can.
okay. I need to just clarify for everybody. The last like 2 weeks, Well, the one pod I had to do by myself, I texted you and was like, send me your predictions. Send me your predictions so I can put them in the deal. Because I did mine for like 2 days. Not a peep. Not a peep. So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
I gotcha. I gotcha. That's the same week I'm at the ranch with hardly any service, and the same
You
week that
needed
Los.
service for 30 seconds to send me, I want these 3 teams or 5 teams or whatever it was.
Anyways, my prediction, dude, I'm on the Penix train, man. I'm on the Penix. Some of the throws he made in that Texas game.
Dude,
I mean,
there was that one on the sideline that's just an absolute dot. Like I'm
well, how about the
maybe
one in the end zone between the two safeties, both crashing down right at the ball, and it just goes right between them to the. And by the way, his receivers are unbelievable as well. But
that may be the best receiving. That probably is the best receiving core in college football. But yeah, he just had so many. Like I mean, literally, he probably had. That's what's crazy is I could go back and probably name 6 passes that were just NFL level
yeah,
throws. I mean, the dude's legit.
yeah,
So yeah, I guess we're not going to settle it because I'm going to pick Washington too. I think Washington's the downside for Washington. I like it's one of those weird matchups. Washington's secondary is not very good.
yeah,
But Michigan has been a very like hit or miss team with their passing game, right? Like we talked about
right.
that. So it's kind of like Michigan's weakness against Washington's weakness because every other part of the field, it's like I look at them and I'm going, they're pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah, but like
So
I said, I don't think that Michigan's quarterback's a great quarterback. So I just don't think he's going to be able to take advantage enough to, to win it all the way out kind of a thing. Is my thought. And so, you know, their secondary doesn't have to be excellent, I guess is what I'm getting at, right? Like, and by the way, that secondary was able to slow down Bo Nix enough to win, and they were able to slow down Caleb Williams enough to win. I mean, like
they found
that's
they're the
it.
team. They're the team. They said that somebody said it best in the Discord. I think they even said it on the broadcast. This is just a team that has found a way to win every single week.
Well, and I think that's part like again, I think some of the reason that people say that their defense isn't any good is because statistically they don't line up. But again, they played Utah, who's not a bad offense, right? Like, will bully you and get around. They played Caleb Williams, Bo Nix
Twice.
again,
Yeah.
DJ. I mean, like, when you think about the offenses they played, there's no way they should be at the top half of So, how about this? Maybe they're actually pretty good and they've just played incredible. Like, for example, I've bagged on Texas's DBs all year. They didn't play an awful game. Penix just made some freaking incredible throws and they made some incredible
Yeah,
catches.
I was gonna say I actually thought this game is probably it's got to be close to the best performance for Texas's secondary all season.
Yeah. And so, I mean, like, that's the deal, man. Like, so maybe their DBs are actually not as bad as we're wanting to say. And like we used to say about OU's defense, it was bad through a lot of years. But there was also a lot of years where they were playing 6 of the top 15 offenses in all the country. So their numbers were going to be skewed no matter what, right? So, by the way, Michigan is favored by 4.5 right now on ESPN. Is the line 4.5 for Michigan?
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna take Washington.
Yeah.
Something else we haven't talked about. Did you see the post game interview with Jim Harbaugh and all them?
No, I did not.
So they asked him. They said, there's been rumors of you going to the NFL with the Chargers or whoever. And all he said was, all I'm focused on right now is my happy flight back to Ann Arbor. Which I was like, man, maybe this is the OU Lincoln Riley thing coming back to like a PTSD thing. And I'm like, is that just he didn't deny it? You know what I mean? Like he didn't just
Right.
come out and just say, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying at Michigan. He just said, I'm focused on my flight back
Right.
to Ann Arbor.
Right.
So that's all weird. There's been rumors that he's going to the Chargers and that they're chasing Brian Kelly or he'd be a leading candidate to go to Ann Arbor. I don't know. I don't see the Brian Kelly thing happening much. Just because he hasn't had a ton of success. I mean, he didn't win a natty or something at LSU, right? Like LSU had a lot of talent when he came in. It's a not a
Well,
blue.
yes, but they were in shambles after Ed, right? After all those years of Ed, that the culture and everything was destroyed at LSU. So he came into a tough job. I mean, there's no doubt.
Yeah,
And
it's
and they are better. Now their defense was bad this year, but they are better. They are way, way better than when he got there. He won at Notre Dame. He won at Cincinnati. And look, he's a New England guy. I just think Michigan culture fits him better. And I think if they offered him the job, the money's going to be the same. I mean, go for it, man. Like,
here's
do
my
you,
thing.
boo. I cannot see Brian. I'll say this: there's no way Brian Kelly sticks in Louisiana for 10 years. That ain't happening, right? He had to get out of Notre Dame because of all the different things that hinder you there, right? The GPA levels and the academic levels to get kids into the school, the Catholic stuff they have to deal with and maneuver around to get kids into the school, all that stuff. He wanted out of that and wanted a place that would let him win. And by the way, Michigan will let him do that in a culture he wants. I think that there could really be smoke there, but we'll see. But yeah, I'm still picking Washington, but not because of that.
Lincoln Riley to the Chargers. You heard it here first.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Well, let's move on to some basketball quickly. Hey, by the way, the Thunder, they are pretty good, even though they lost tonight, by the way. What was it, 130?
To not a great Hawks team, but yes, it was. They lost by like 3.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. They
141 to
were talking
138.
about this on the radio today. The Hawks are actually one of the top 3 offenses in the NBA. They can't play defense, which is why
Yep.
you score 128 points. You know how many times they've held a team under 100 points so far this year, the Hawks?
0.
Excuse me. Sorry, I should have muted that. Yeah, 0. Not even close. Not even close have they held a team to under 100 points. So they're terrible defensively, but they're hot offensively. They got it cooking tonight. But let's also be clear. This was a back-to-back for the Thunder who had to play the Celtics last night. It's not crazy to think that they would drop this game playing a fresh Atlanta Hawks team, right? By the way, in the last month, the Thunder have beaten the Nuggets twice. They have
Which,
beaten
by
the
the way, did you know the rest of the NBA has beaten the Nuggets once at home?
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty crazy. Pretty
Yeah.
crazy. Clippers, I was there for that game. They looked amazing. They've beaten the Timberwolves, the number 1 seed in the West. They have beaten the Celtics, the number 1 seed in the East, all in this month. I mean, so the question kind of is, are we on full? This is a title, like legitimate title contender team right now.
Look, I'm the guy that said 50 wins.
Yes, you are. That's why I'm asking you. Bring me the sunshine. Tell me to start playing the parade.
I think they could be. Yeah. I think they're at least a Western Conference.
That's not what I asked you. I said, are they a title? Are they an actual, real deal title contender, or maybe?
Yes.
So
And
they
here's
are.
my logic, because it's really early in the season. This is way too early for me to predict anyway. But like you said, they're not. This isn't like we talked about last season, right? And the Thunder had a couple of good marquee wins last season, but a lot of their early wins were against bad teams, right? This year they're going and beating the best teams without a doubt.
And
And
with
not only
all their
that,
players, they're not resting.
yeah.
They're not resting their best players like last year.
And when you look at it, when you look at them going against even some of their losses have been against good teams that they barely like, they're not getting blown out for the most part. They've had like maybe one bad loss this whole season.
Yeah, that
Right?
first game against the Nuggets.
Yeah, but outside of that, it's like, dude, they're right there. I mean, tonight, the Hawks, like you said, not a great team overall, but they only lose by 3, right? Like they didn't. I feel like the Thunder teams of the past, the last year or two, it's like they would get a big win, they'd go beat the Celtics, and then they would lose by 30 the next night.
Right.
And we're not seeing that. And like, well, I was telling you, I was watching. Obviously, I couldn't watch the game live because I'm not paying for Bally's, but I was watching it. It's like they're rotating guys like crazy, and this is the thing with this Thunder team. You don't take Shea Gilgeous out of the game, who's the best player on the roster, and it just fall apart.
Right.
you put like there was a point where I think there was a point where I told you there Chet and Shea, neither of them were on the field or on the court. Sorry, the court. And they were still keeping up with the Hawks. They weren't the difference wasn't increasing. So I think they are. It's funny. I had an interaction with one of my buddies who's a big Sixers fan, and somebody was saying, should Embiid or should SGA be more MVP candidate? Look, I'm gonna be honest. Right now, if the voting was right now, Embiid should be the MVP. Like he leads in every statistical category over SGA. He does,
Not in every.
except steals. Except steals. But look, Embiid's an incredible player. I wouldn't say that. However, I would say Chet should be a rookie of the year by a country mile right now if it was ended. And SGA should be he's a top 5 player in the league right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
easy.
absolutely.
So and I think, like I said, Chet is come on, I think, a lot faster and a lot better than we thought he would. Giddy's starting to get back into his old his play. And it just feels like there's still that's what's crazy to me is it still feels like there's a little bit of that gelling happening in certain games, and they're still winning big games.
Yeah, I totally I agree with you on all those fronts. I would say it this way. Contender, I think it's still a little early for that. I tweeted this earlier today from our account. Here's what I believe about this team. I don't care who they get matched up with at this point in the playoffs. I do not care who it is. This team can win 3 games against anybody, for sure. The 4th game, I think it's a coin flip. But they've shown they can beat the Nuggets 3 times in a 7-game series. They have shown that they can beat the Clippers 3 times in a 7. They can beat the Timberwolves 3 times. They can beat the Celtics 3 times in a 7-game series. That can happen. After that, I don't know. And so I'm not ready. But I will say this. I did come into the season not believing they would get to 50 wins. If they stay healthy, they should. And number 2, my expectation was you should be able to be in the playoffs, however you get there, and you should be able to win a first round series, right? They should be winning a second round series at this point to me. Now, I don't know if they can beat the team, after that, just because they don't have the experience of the playoffs that these other teams do. But I still think right now you would definitely still want to put more money on the Nuggets, more money on the Celtics, more money on the
For sure.
the Bucks, and maybe even the Clippers to some degree.
I mean, let me put it this way. When you look at them as a top 4 team in the NBA, but that's where they're ranked, I believe still even after tonight.
Yeah.
Like that, to me, that makes them a title contender.
Yeah.
Right. And they legitimately look like that. Again, this isn't them beating up on, they didn't play the Piston for 28 games. Right. They've been playing legitimate teams. I think that's why I'm so hyped about them. So yeah.
And by the way, I don't feel like I've been highly critical of Giddey per se, but I've not just jumped on this train of like, well, Giddey is the second coming of whatever, right? But I have said forever, man, if you can get a consistent Giddey on the offensive side, night in and night out, it changes this team. And I would say the same about Dort, really, right? Like either one of those guys, which Dort has been pretty incredible so far. But listen to these stats, okay? The first win against the Nuggets was a 118-117 win. Super tight game. Here's Giddey's stat line. 4, 2, and 4. That's bad. Okay, that is not a good stat line. And by the way, he was -7 in the plus-minus category in that game. Okay. Dort, on the other hand, was 13 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. That's a great night from Dort, and you win the game. Okay. Clippers blowout. I was there for that game. Giddey and Dort combined for 32 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists. Okay. And they blew the Clippers out, who at that point were the hottest team in the NBA. They were on like a 9 or 10 game win streak coming into that game. The Timberwolves, the number 1 seed in the West, you blow them out by 23. Giddey and Dort, 30 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists combined, and they blow them out. Nuggets. Now, granted, the Nuggets did not have Aaron Gordon that game. They beat the freaking Nuggets by 26. 26 points.
Mm-hmm.
Giddey, 12, 8, and 4. Dort, 4, 4, and 1. Okay, so not a great night for Dort, but he also didn't shoot the ball a lot that night. And then this last one, Celtics, who I still think is the best roster in the NBA. You win 127, 123. Giddey was 8 of 14 for 23 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. Dort was 4 of 14, 9 points, 8 rebounds, 1 assist. All that to say, you get both of those guys by the end of the year playing consistent. Like that stat line from Giddey's insane. 23 points. That's just nuts. But look, those 2 games that you were really at your best, about 12 to 14 points. 10 to 14 points. Like an efficient 10 to 14 points for those guys changes everything for this team. And if they can find that, I will absolutely say they're not just title contenders, they're front runners. But so far, they have not gotten that from those 2 guys for more than 2 or 3 games at a time.
Yeah, and look, and here's the kicker for tonight, just to go to tonight. Before I talk about tonight's stats, one, you also hear other superstars in the league. You've heard LeBron, you've heard I think even Giannis talked about it at one point in one of their games. Who else was it that was some? But they're talking about Chet and they're talking about SGA and how much of a problem they are and how good they are. Like the league's taking notice of those 2 guys, especially, right? Like those are 2. SGA has arrived as a superstar.
Yes.
Chet
superstar
is on his way.
He's
right.
Superstar.
I don't want to put that label on him in his rookie season. Right. But right now he is. But I'm not saying he doesn't have enough resume, I guess I would say, to be where he's an established top 20 player in the league, right? Or whatever. So but to go to tonight's stats, like I said, like you were talking about, Giddey played 22 minutes. He was 3 from 7 from the field, 2 from 3 from 3-point. He had 9 points. Right. Like his rest of his stats, he had 2 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal. Right. So
turnovers. How many turnovers do you have?
He had 2.
So 2 to 2 on the assist to turnover ratio.
Yeah. So now Shea started out a little slow. I don't remember what the stats are. I'd have to go back and look again, but he did get a little bit better as the game went on. We were talking earlier because we were kind of talking about this before the pod. He was not shooting really great. He was like maybe in the 30, I think, % range or whatever. But finished the game 11 from 24 from the field, 2 from 3 from 3-point, 9 of 11 on free throws. He had 12 defensive rebounds, 13 rebounds in total, 8 assists. So he has a double-double, very close to a triple-double, 2 turnovers, and he ended up with 33 points. Chet did not have a great game. Played 25 minutes, 5 for 9, 2 from 5 for 3. He only had 3 rebounds, 1 assist, and he had 12 points. He had 4 turnovers. So Chet did not have a great game. And I was a little worried. I didn't get to watch the game. I haven't got to read. We've been kind of just watching the stats in the game, the box score. So I don't know if he got nicked up. He didn't play a lot of the third quarter. Didn't look like he didn't even play a lot of or he missed a fair amount of the fourth quarter. So I don't know if he got a little dinged up or something. But yeah, it's like really when you look at their
what about
stats,
Dort? What was Dort's line tonight?
29 minutes, 3 from 7 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3-point. He did make all 6 of his free throws. 4 rebounds, 3 assists. He had no turnovers. But he did end up with 4 personal fouls. So
how many points was that? 15?
14, sorry.
14 points for him. Okay.
Yeah. Jalen Williams, if you want to talk about somebody, 9 from 12. 9 for 12 and from the field, 1 3-point made. Only had 2 of 5 from free throw.
That's bad for him.
3 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 steals, 21 points.
Wow. So free throws for them tonight was really the Achilles heel because Shea don't miss. He's got 2 misses, and J-Dub has got 3 misses.
Giddey was 1 for 2 on his. Chad didn't have any. And the only other person I shot, Casey Wallace, had 2, but he made both of his.
Yeah.
Casey Wallace had 15 points.
Dude, that kid's a baller, man. He's a baller.
Wiggins had 13. I mean, it's just crazy. Like you can't. That's what I'm saying. This is the difference. Is I think this is like maybe the evolution of the NBA to some degree. Maybe that I'm hoping that that's the maybe this is the sunshine in me, them being a little ahead of the curve. Where again you don't like you have Shea who's a superstar, but like when you look at this roster, you look at the stat line, it's like everybody's kind of balanced out. You know what I mean? Like it's not like okay, well, Giddy's out, so we're screwed,
Right.
right? Like you can throw a ton of guys out there. It's very like we talked about it being positionless basketball. Um, it's just crazy. Every time you pull up the stat sheet, there's somebody that did really well. Wiggins, right? Like not no dog on Wiggins, but it's like most other teams, Wiggins not putting up 13 points, right? Or Case and Wallace may not be.
Yeah.
Right, like they get a lot more stats. I think they contribute a lot more. I think that's Dagnall's just genius as his degree and obviously to Presti. So very interesting team. I'm very like I said, I'm obviously high on them. We gotta have another. I know we're going to eventually. We gotta have one with Troy because I know Troy's the Thunder expert. So
Yeah. He understands the game better than we do, and he follows it a lot tighter than we do. So yeah, it'd be great to bring him in. We had a moment to do a whole bunch of around the world type stuff. But man, we've gone for like 2 hours.
have we really?
Yes.
Jeez.
We have been on it.
Hey, it's okay. Sponsors. We're
Sponsors.
going to do longer spot. We'll plug you 3 times in a
Yeah,
pod. You know what I mean?
100%. 100%.
Ed's used car and tire shop. See, we can get it. We can start practicing, right? So,
Yes.
but yeah,
we are all about it. But man, I mean, it's crazy. We've only taken a week off from doing a pod. There was just so much. I mean,
yeah.
with the Under Armour game, the Alamo Bowl, I mean, so much to recap and talk about and work our way through.
Maybe we can do a reaction pod to the national championship game next week.
We absolutely should do that. And by the way, I can't say it's like confirmed. I don't have a contract, but it is in print that Braden Willis has said that he will come on when the season's over for the 49ers. And we're super excited about that. Which could be a minute.
Yeah. 49ers look really good.
Real good.
Yeah, real good. The NFL is actually really entertaining this year.
It's fun right now. But I tell you what, it's very hard for me to believe that if the 49ers are clicking on all cylinders that anybody can beat them.
Okay. But just the last thing, and then we can wrap this up. Who, if you had to vote right now for MVP of the NFL, who are you voting for? Who would you catch? I might vote Tyreek. I know he's been hurt.
I'm okay with that. I wouldn't be mad. Like, there are 3 guys for me. There are 3 dudes, and they're the only ones that should be in the conversation, period. McCaffrey. I do believe that Tyreek should be in that conversation, and Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson should 100% be in that because the thing with Lamar forever has been it's Mark Andrews. All he can do is throw the tight end that's got a mismatch. Well, guess what? He's been hurt. And it hadn't done, and they do not have a running back there. He is passing the ball. He's running the ball. Dude's playing out of his mind, man. Like playing great football. And it's like no one's talking about it to me. They're still talking about Dak Prescott. Everybody wants to argue. Now, by the way, Brock Purdy, you deserve your applause. And by the way, everybody, this BS about Brock Purdy doesn't deserve any praise because he's on a great team. That's true of every quarterback that's ever been great. Period.
You know what? I'm going to give one of my boys a big Packer fan, right? Huge Packers fan. And I want to give a shout out. The one guy that I'll stamp it right now. If they keep it together and everybody stays healthy over the next few years, the team to watch, the Packers. Jordan Love has got like nothing but rookies at wide receiver. They're a super young team. And Jordan Love has honestly looked pretty good. Statistically, he's been really dang good.
Yeah. Especially here late in the season, he has been. He kind of started slow and then he's gotten going. I agree with you. No, he's been great. There's been a lot of guys, but yeah, I mean, I understand the Brock Purdy talk, but I mean, that team is the numbers that McCaffrey's put up are dumb. And I want him to win it just because I'm sick of it just being the
The best
quarterback on the
quarterback.
best team award, just like they
Yeah.
do with the Heisman, and it makes me sick. Like, again, and honestly, the best player still in all of the league, and he's not being talked about at all. But again, how would Brock Purdy, how would Lamar Jackson do with the receiver core that Patrick Mahomes has?
Yeah. Troy's gonna love you for that one.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Nope. And that's the other thing. So you want to talk about most valuable? Where would the Chiefs be without Patrick Mahomes? Let's ask that question because that's the intent of the award, right? Is
The real question
who's
is, where would the Chiefs be without Taylor Swift?
oh my gosh.
Um, no, I agree with you. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, I do think this has been Patrick Mahomes' worst season. I mean, obviously he has nobody to throw to.
Right.
But still, when you're throwing the ball to the other team,
Well, because you're pressing,
yeah,
right? Like,
yeah,
and your guys, and how many picks has he had this year that have been throws through his guys' hands that then end up in the defense's hands? I mean, I've seen
yeah,
at least 3 this year, 4 this year that have been that way, right? Like, it's kind of like the year the first year that Baker was kind of off to a rough start, and like nobody was talking about the fact that the Browns were leading the NFL in drops. And they're like, well, Baker's numbers. And it's like that half of them are drops, half his
yeah.
incompletions are drops. And then like a third of his interceptions are deflected balls that have been dropped that
Hey,
end up as interceptions.
yeah. Well, then this will actually be my last thing. I do want to shout out the Lions should have beat the Cowboys. Everybody get
Yes.
mad at me in this. That officiating was, I was so confused. I was like, I don't understand how you're making this mistake. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not an official. I have friends that their father is an official in the NFL. I'm not going to say
Yeah.
who he is or anything, but I don't understand that. That was a crazy. I do feel bad for the Lion fan base, but the Lions look for really stinking good too. So
Yeah.
this playoffs shaping up to be wild, honestly.
Yeah. And like, don't sleep on the Rams. I mean, like, there's there's teams out there, man.
Yeah,
There's
we need
there's
the.
a
I
lot of
think the
teams.
Buccaneers need. I think Baker needs to win this weekend for them to make it to the playoff. If I
Playoffs,
if I
that's
remember
correct.
correctly, yeah,
And they're getting to play Carolina, which
should
you
yeah,
should beat that team, right? You should beat that team and make the playoffs. And I want to see Baker win a playoff game. That would be so epic. Oh my gosh, it'd be so epic. So,
yep,
anyways, that's it. That's us. That's who we are. Again, we are not journalists. We're not insiders. We don't have paywalls. We do not have Patreon stuff. We're just dudes talking football. So we'd love for you to come along for the ride. We try to do a live show every once in a while and let you get in on the action as well. So again, like, subscribe, and follow, especially on YouTube if you want to get in on the live stuff with us. That would be fantastic. And again, your likes, your subscriptions mean a lot to us, and we're grateful for everyone that does do that stuff. And it also helps us when we do reach out to guys like Braden Willis, or we reach out to other dudes that we want to be on, recruits that we want to interview. Gives us a little bit of clout to be able to get those guys on here. And so we hope that you'll do that for us. All right. We're having a great time. We hope you are too. I'm Daryl. That's Jared. And we will talk to you guys later.
bye Baker.